Oh, my beautiful dear sister Sarah. So nice to see you today.
Hi, beautiful. It's
Hi. So today we're here. Thank you to everyone who's going to be watching this. We're here today. Sarah and I are friends, sisters, connected, even though we've never met in person yet. We met a couple years ago and we were having a conversation the other day that really inspired us to come here and make some time and some space to just deliver some soulful conversations, connecting with our communities, and just being in service here. We felt that there was a lot that we could discuss together today, to share, to inspire, to create with. And we're just going to kind of open our hearts and allow the divine to speak through us, sharing a little bit about ourselves, our life, and all of the work that we're here to do. And so, Sarah, why don't you just take a moment and just let everyone know a little bit about your background, anything you want to share, what inspired you to be here today, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, thank you, my love. I'm Sarah Noble, am the modern day intuitive, and I really am here in service to our spiritual path, to developing our intuition and helping humanity evolve in a beautiful and heartfelt way. So, one of the ways I feel that we can most serve each other is through our vulnerability and through our willingness to turn towards everything and show up in love and hope and inspiration for each other through modeling it through our own lives. Like, yes, I've been on a spiritual path for 25 years, and yet I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still human. And I think it is in coming together to recognize our humanness that we can really deepen our spiritual path, our spiritual awakening, because first and foremost, we live in a body and we're here to experience earth. So for me, spirituality and intuition are very much an embodied experience. And how do I show up in my life through the lens of this, but still having the compassion for myself that I'm going to mess it up and that I'm going to get it wrong and that sometimes my emotions are going to overwhelm me. Yet, all the while, learning, growing, finding more tools on how do I walk this path of being human with as much grace and ease as I can cultivate for myself.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that in such a beautiful way. And it really touches my heart too, because it's like, yeah, like that is what this path is becoming fully embodied in this lifetime. So thank you for sharing that. And I feel like that resonates with my heart and a little bit about my path too. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Maher, and I am an ancestral womb healer and spiritual guide. And coming home into my body has been the greatest experience of my life. And yes, I share and echo the same beliefs that you hold around being in touch with our bodies is how we're going to be able to discern our intuition and that sacred voice that leads us and guides us in our life. And yeah, so a little bit about my path. I've come into this world all led by spirit. My healing path began a long time ago too, but particularly being in service has been in the last 9 years. And um, part of that has been the awakening of coming home into my body, understanding that a lot of the things that I experienced as pain or trauma in my lifetime is actually things that have been inherited or conditioned through society. And so I have been doing some deep work, clearing ancestral trauma and working with the womb space. This is a new space that I've stepped into in the last couple of years, and being able to hear her voice, to know what our womb and how it communicates with us, so that we can make our choices and lead our life in that way that is soul aligned, hearing our intuition from our body, because that is how it's going to communicate with us. and to us. Yeah. So I'm
Such
sure,
good stuff.
yeah, it's going to be really great to like just let this all unfold. Um, and so, yeah, before we just hopped on and hit record, we were just talking a little bit about some of the things that are showing up in our lives that we can maybe touch on and speak to. And you shared something really beautiful that really resonated with me too, around your experiences with fear recently. So I'd love to just pass that over. And if you want to share a little bit about how that's been working you and what you've been learning about yourself and yourself as a human being living on this earth.
Yeah, thanks. You know, fear, I think, has been a really incredible teacher. And it wasn't always that relationship, though. I feared things and it stopped me from doing things because that voice of fear was so loud that I believed that it was the truth. And I think, like how you're talking about ancestral generational stuff, that gets handed down to us too. And it comes from how our living situation is as a child, whether we feel safe or not inside of our family unit. And when we don't, that can sort of leave us open, energetically open and available for different energies to evolve with us as we grow. And so they live inside our energetic field because we weren't necessarily protected. So we grow up believing the fear at such a deep level because it's actually permeated us in a way. This has been my experience of what I've been uncovering about my own journey and this walk with fear. And so once I was able to clear some of the energetic piece of the fear, there's a capacity to see fear for what it is. And that can be lots of different things. And one of those things recently, fear has been a motivator for me. But a motivator, not in the way of like, oh, do this because something bad will happen, which is what the story says to me anyway. It's more, it wouldn't leave me alone, this particular voice. And it was based around scarcity and it was based around money. And I would wake up in the night and feel panicked. And it was really hard to differentiate reality from the story because the fear voice was really powerful. And I've done a lot of work in this area. It's not as if I was going in here sort of at the beginning. This is an evolution for me. And it was really in turning towards this fear and allowing it to say what it had to say without trying to filter it, without trying to change it, without trying to do something about it. It was really just being inside of the experience of it. That actually what I realized was that underneath it was actually my intuition telling me that a particular relationship that I was in my life was no longer in service to where I was going. And yet I had another story playing that told me that I needed to have it, that I couldn't accomplish something or I couldn't be something without this relationship. So I had these different stories playing out, and it took really getting very deep and personal with those stories and with that fear to actually really hear what the wisdom was underneath. And once I did, it was really, I mean, things changed quite quickly. Within 24, 48 hours, I was on a different path once I really was able to get to the part that inside me, my body, my intuition was really asking me to hear. So it can be confusing at times because that, is it my fear? Is it my intuition? Well, in this case, it was both. And I think I wouldn't have noticed it, or I wouldn't have been able to differentiate that if I'm not willing to really, with a fine-tooth comb, go through everything about the experience and really question each step of the process and each thing I'm thinking, feeling, saying, doing, and how it all comes together to really connect into that deep, deep wisdom that lives inside us. So that was this journey that I had. And it was really profound because I even teach about how do you tell the difference between your fear and your intuition. And a lot of times it is easy to tell if you have a practice of discerning and telling. But it's also complicated at sometimes, which is what I learned in that moment. And it
Mhm.
was both and.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
cool. Yes, and I love that because I've recently had experiences too where it's like, is this my intuition? Is this an old story or fear or paranoia or something like that? And you're so right. It's like the smallest texture difference between the two, but it's noticeable when you can really just come to it and be with it and feel the difference. And it's a developed practice. Absolutely. And one of the things for me that I asked myself when I was in a similar situation, being met with, is this my intuition or is this fear? I remember I was doing laundry downstairs and I asked myself, Melissa, what does fear feel like in your body? What does your intuition feel like in your body? And for me, there's a stillness inside that I can feel right around here. That's like this, right in the center of my chest. This is my intuition when it is still and calm. If I'm confused about something, it's not it. So yeah, learning and discerning and practicing it over and over and over again to understand the language that your body communicates to you with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Mine is sort of a settling that comes down that central channel. And when I was first really working, fine-tuning the place of understanding what my intuition feels like, I even would get sort of a shiver that would run through. And it was like the automatic sign that this was truth. This was true for me, right? Because truth is subjective, but this is true for me. And in the beginning, I think it needed to be so like, visceral so that I could learn that this was it. And it wouldn't happen all the time, right? It would happen for bigger things that were more definitive. And then as I practiced honoring that feeling, then I was able to get more into the nuances, into those slight variations that you're referring to. And now it's like a collecting, a settling, a gathering down this center that helps me know that, yeah, I don't need to question this. This is just the thing I'm doing. Does it make sense? Not always. Do I feel a little crazy sometimes that I'm doing the thing? Yes. And what's important is that I do it, because in the doing, it's where I validate myself, where I give myself that internal yes, like, yeah, you are following your own path. You're following your own sense, your own intuition. And as you take those steps, you get to have an experience that where it starts to become more the thing that you do as opposed to the thing you're learning how to do. It becomes more second nature.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, and I want to take something that you shared there too and work with that a little bit too. You mentioned it in a couple of different ways about how sitting in it, being with what's there is probably one of the deepest practices, and how that can awaken so much for us. And so when we're able to actually sit in the fear and be with it, not try to change it, not try to like make it right or wrong, good or bad, literally sit in it and allow all of the sensations to run through our body for us to then reach that place of calm and centered again. To me, that's a very courageous act, because it is innately human of us to want to avoid pain. Anything uncomfortable, it's human nature to want to avoid. And so the healing path is quite the courageous path, because literally we have to feel all of the things in order to heal it. And some people I've met, and myself included, have been like, nope, nope. not willing, not available, not there. And
Mhm.
that's okay, when we can be honest with ourselves, and moving past that fear, that discomfort as well, to be like, okay, I recognize I'm just meeting fear here, and I'm going to move past this. I'm going to work through this. I'm going to breathe through that. I'm going to hold myself in this moment, however that may be, even if it's viscerally and physically, to be like, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable, but I'm going to move through this. That is the courageous act of healing and self-development.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I love bringing it really to that embodied experience. What I have found, I mean, I ran from stuff for years and ran hard, like into alcohol, into food addictions, drug addictions, all the things. I ran hard the other way.
Mhm.
And then there's a point where it's like, there's got to be some other way. Like, this cannot be the point to life.
Mm.
And you have to put down the things. And I will say, even today, and like I say, 25 years of self inquiry, doing things towards where I am today. When I was inside that fear, there's the voice that's like, oh, you know what? Why don't you go buy some chocolate? Because that will make you feel better. And it's like, yeah, because there's something here you don't want to feel. And you're going to try to go back to that old, excuse me, way of running away. And it's like, yeah, chocolate would taste amazing right now. And we can have some. First, we're going to sit here. First, we're going to understand what's happening. And so I still see those patterns playing out, those places that I want to run. Like, I don't think the standard is like that you're never going to run. You run less, you get maybe afraid less, you
Maybe a
turn, you
cool
find
dance.
yeah, you find the courage
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to like give themselves a hard time because they're still running. It's like, yeah, it happens, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. Maybe next time you won't, or maybe
Mhm.
this time you kind of half ran. It's making me think of like when I was learning how to communicate and be in situations, because I physically ran. Like if I had an in conflict, I
Mhm.
would run, put on my shoes and run out the door.
Mhm.
And I remember the time in a conversation with my husband, and I held onto the chair to stop myself from running out of the room
Wow.
because I was practicing standing inside of an uncomfortable situation without running. And I had
Mhm.
to anchor myself into something so that I wouldn't run because so much was happening inside.
Mhm.
And to bring all this around, that moment changed me. It's not always as hard. The
Mhm.
first time, it's hard. But
Mhm.
then your body, you change something in the chemistry of your brain when you show yourself that you can stay and you don't die. Because really, like, I think that that's what the survival
Yeah.
mechanism kicks
Yeah.
in. And whatever it is, you might die. So get
Yeah.
away, turn away. But by actually staying for just once,
Mhm.
something changes and the next time is easier. And
Mhm.
it builds because you're creating new brain chemistry and new body chemistry by facing, by turning towards, by having the courage to stay. It's not always like that you're on fire.
I love that. I used to believe that this is so funny. I used to believe that when I was healed, I'll never be angry again.
Oh my gosh, right?
Right? And I'm like, I'll never be angry again. Ever. I'll never be angry again. But then I was like, wait a second. That's actually not true. Because first of all, the human experience is to feel the full range of emotions. There is no good or bad. There may be some that are high sensation or uncomfortable, but they're not bad emotions or good emotions. So I used to believe, oh, when I was healed, when I dealt with this thing, I will never be angry again. And that was like, I laugh at my innocence because that's not true. I still get angry. And what happens now is that I become more responsive versus reactive. And that's the difference. The whole world will be burning down in front of us. And if we can stand in our core, in our truth, in our center, being like, I am safe here. This is okay that this is happening outside of us, outside of me. I'm okay. That's where the power comes from. And that's what makes me think about when we talk about like the merging, the creating of heaven on earth, the merging of the 5D with the 3D, like the 3D world is still going to be happening around us as we begin to embody this like 5D energy of heaven on earth. And that's why I love too, like it's from within that we will experience heaven on earth, because the 3D world is still going to be happening. We will still have people in our lives that are like just so into the way of being, which is oppressive and conditioned and all that kind of stuff, while we're just off and viewing the world in a completely different way. And so these things can happen simultaneously, just like meeting the anger. The anger can be there and my center can also be there. And I love that distinction. It's not this or that, it's this and that.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I share a similar thing where I just think, well, once I fix this thing about me, then XYZ, right? And it's just always putting something outside of myself and making a condition on myself and making myself wrong.
Yeah.
And it was when I let go of this need to fix myself that things changed.
Yeah.
There was a much more compassion in there. And I love that you bring in, right, the 3D and the 5D, because for me, what I experience and see as we're evolving is that we have to turn inward. The journey from 3D to 5D, I don't necessarily use those terms, but that journey from being so dense and so of the earth and so connected to materialism and capitalism and needing more and all the stories that we're fed that keep us disconnected from the truth of our spirituality. Those are the things that we have to look at. And to evolve, right, to the way that the planet requires of us in order for us to sustain humanity as a species moving forward. We can't just keep pretending that our pain doesn't exist, that there aren't people suffering in the world, that we're not perpetuating it by not having the courage to look at ourselves, because we're all connected. So when I look at myself, I raise everybody up because we're all one. So the more we turn away, the less we're saying I'm part of the one. The more we're believing the lie that we're separate, that I don't need to look at my pain. I'm just going to keep doing my life and, numbing myself through work or buying more things or, whatever the thing is you do that you do so that you aren't present and home, you're doing to everybody.
I love that.
Yeah. And again, not in a guilting way. I don't want to make anybody feel bad about it. We all have done it, right? It's just, I think it's more of a like recognizing that it's more it's more than just me. It's more than just you. How are we coming together to do this?
Yeah. I love that. And even taking it a step further, which has been present in my life recently, is, creating this world, creating this life that we will be proud to hand down to our great, great, great grandchildren, the people we will never meet.
Yeah. There's
So
I was just going to say there's an expression in the Andean traditions, and I don't know if it originated there, but they teach this, that we don't inherit the world from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And yeah, so just to add to what you're saying.
Love that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like, to be a good ancestor, because we are ancestors right now.
Yeah, we are right now, we're the ancestors.
We are ancestors, whether we have our own children or not. We are ancestors. We are part of a lineage. And to be a good ancestor involves your active participation in your own healing, because what does not get healed gets passed down.
Yeah.
So if you're aware of something, and you used this language a moment ago, if you're aware of something that you know in yourself, turn to it, because we can lie to other people. But man, it's hard to swallow that thing that we know is true. And I've done this. Swallow it. We're like, no, I'm gonna lie.
Yeah.
Lie. I'm gonna lie. I'm gonna lie. I'm gonna lie.
I'm gonna pretend. Yeah, no.
It's not real. But it's freaking real. You can't lie to yourself. When you are that into, like, you can't lie to yourself. It's impossible. Like, it's literally like, when I catch myself lying to myself now, it's like I force myself to do the thing, because it's like I can't lie to myself anymore. And so, yeah, like being so truthful and honest and vulnerable with ourselves, sitting with ourselves, cultivating community and connections with people, because that's another thing. There are things that only I can do on my path. There are certain things that I have to be actively participating in order to change and heal. And that does not mean I need to do it alone. Yet there are things that only I can do. But this idea of healing alone is so, it adds to that separation that we were talking about earlier. Like, it's so detrimental. It's not natural for us to isolate ourselves with our pain. Back in the days, in the good old ancient days, like, we healed in community. We healed with each other. And so remembering that, turn to your brothers and sisters, turn to your support network, create a community for yourself if you don't have one, because it's really important. And I come across a lot of people who are like, I just wish I could find people who get me. And I'm like, okay, let's create it. You know, there are people out there just like us, looking for people just like us.
Yeah. Yep. You're reminding me, gosh, in the very early days, of my beginning to heal, I read Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And the most profound thing about that book for me was that there were, at that time, I think 50 million copies in print, and it was in 30 languages or something. I don't know where it stands now, but I remember like reading that book as if she wrote it for me personally. And the fact, and because I always felt it was only me that felt this way. I was the only one with these problems and this lack of self-esteem and the insecurity, all those things. I was hiding it from the world because it could only be me. Everybody else looked like they totally had their stuff together. And reading that book pulled the wool from over my eyes of, wow, actually, I'm not alone. If 50 million copies of this book are out there, I'm not that special. Right? Like,
Yeah.
And it caused me to, I'd been carrying a card in my wallet of a therapist that a friend had given me for a full year.
Okay.
Too afraid to call. Because I was so damaged and broken. This was how I felt about myself, that I was like ashamed to call, because this man would just take one look at me and just be sorry for me. Like, this is how I felt. I was so in my wounding and in my stories. And I didn't have the courage to call him for a year. And I read that book, and then I called him. And it began this incredible life-changing journey that, gosh, I just am so, so grateful for.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very pivotal book. I recently pulled it out. I was in my case and I was like, oh, I'm going to carry this thing around. It was my encyclopedia at one point with the symptoms and references to them. If you not read You Can Heal Your Life, absolutely go and get that book. It's really, really, really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it really speaks to, in her own way, how everything starts in the energetic and the in
Mhm.
the metaphysical and then moves into the physical.
Mhm.
And I will say that was another life-changing portal that I walked through, was when I started taking things to the energetics. Before, my healing mostly revolved around talk therapy and coaching and journaling and exercises, and it was very mental and emotional, which I needed. I had to
Mhm.
start somewhere. There was so much to unpack.
Yeah.
And it was when I started working with a shaman that there was an exponential shift, because
Beautiful.
I took it into the realms, into the subtle realms where everything originates anyway. We're just playing it out in a physical reality, but it's all from the energetics initially.
I
So,
love it.
mhm,
Yeah. And that ties into the human experience very much too, where I'm at in my life right now, in my healing journey. It's been fascinating coming back into the body. So I started with a lot of mindset stuff, a lot of emotional work, got into the energy work, and yes, all of these things. And recently I started to come back into my body. And I found this amazing woman online, thanks to a reference from a friend of mine. Her name on Instagram is The Workout Witch. And I'm totally going to become an affiliate because I'm like so into this woman. She's really cool. And she does a lot of like different somatic, very gentle somatic exercises that help release the stored emotions inside of your body. Because we store a lot. For women, we store a lot of our emotions in our womb space, and I've come into some beautiful deep practices with that as well, around yoni steaming, clearing out the energetics and the physical of our womb. And our hips hold a lot as well.
mhm.
And so I have been doing her course. She has this like hip opener course. It's such a small commitment every day to do some of these exercises, but let me tell you, it's been changing the game for me. Because my body, what I've realized, and tying this back to what you shared earlier about like meeting the fear, um, I've recognized that I have lived in fight or flight my whole life. My body has just experienced that. It's rare. I've had some moments, but it's rare for me to have the peace in my body. And it's interesting too, like every time I make a wish, blow up my birthday cake or blow on a feather, it's always for peace. And I
Mm.
started to realize that. I was like, that's really interesting that I'm always wishing for peace. But it's because it hasn't been something that I've experienced. And yeah, having these like the energy work, the mindset work, because I'm coming back to mindset work now too, because I too got really stuck in these loops of fear and scarcity. Like I'm so grateful I snapped out of it, but I snapped out of it like 2 years later. Like I've been in a spiral for like a good couple of years now. And I yeah, like it just, I mean, the last 3 years in itself, with everything that happened in the world, initiated huge fight or flight responses within people. And I'm just seeing now how mine happened and how deep it went. But yeah, like back to the body stuff, like I've had incredible experiences. Like last week I had 3 noticeable moments that in the past would have triggered a dysregulation in my emotional body, but
Mm.
I was like calm and cool, and I was like, I was like, this, and like feeling it. I'm like, whoa, I'm like, this is really cool. Like, I'm not freaking out right now. And in the past, I did. And so, like, bringing all the pieces in. And I think that comes, it's a nice way to kind of tie back into the honoring of the human in us, who's
Mhm.
going to keep making mistakes, and not shaming ourselves or guilting ourselves into that. Coming into the complexity of being human, how we're all like these unique beings in these bodies that we're learning to live in, especially if we haven't lived in them before, like how to hold emotion, how to hold sensation, how to bring joy and pleasure in, like there's
Yeah.
so many layers to it. So yeah, like trusting that where you begin or where you are on your path is exactly where you're supposed to be. And then knowing that when other things come to you that resonate or tickle an interest a little bit, to follow those, because that is what's going to lead you to the next level of your embodiment, whether it's a mindset
Mhm.
piece, a body piece, energy piece, whatever.
Yeah, you remind me, for a long time, I had a card on my desk or computer, and it was a quote by Hafiz, and it says, "The place you are right now, God circled on the map for you." And that quote, every time I started to like feel into that uncertainty and get scared or question myself, question my path, I should be doing more, comparing myself to others, beating myself up for not doing more or doing too much, however I would get caught, that quote would bring me back to center, because it's like, you are exactly in the moment doing the exact right thing that is correct for you and your journey now.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh.
right? Because man, we can overcomplicate it.
Mhm.
We can overcomplicate it so much. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. This has been like really awesome. I
I have
really
loved this.
enjoyed this. Yeah, this was really great. Why don't we just like close it off with a few words of wisdom that you'd like to share? And if anybody wants to like find you and like get in touch with you, why don't you share a little bit about that too?
Sure, sounds wonderful. So you can find me at sarahnoble.com. On social, I'm at the Modern Day Intuitive, and I would love to hear from you. You can get in touch with me and DM me any questions. I just really am coming into this place where, and I guess maybe this is the wisdom, that it's community right now that is going to help us navigate the uncertain times. I really feel that we're in this portal of time. It's an incredible time to be on earth, even though I still have to remind myself of that sometimes, because it is hot and spicy right now. and but coming back to that truth, that this is the time that your soul chose to be here. And that is significant. That is not an accident. That is something that you orchestrated. And so harnessing that, remembering that truth inside you, that you are here to be part of this revolution, to be part of this shift, to be part of what is happening on the planet. And we're creating these places where you can come and be vulnerable, be open, be you, be the truth of you in a way that's life sustaining.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you. That's so beautiful. Oh, I love this.
Your turn.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like my last few words. What am I going to share? I want to share a message from Mother Earth to
Mm,
you and everyone listening, that she loves you and she wants a relationship with you. She wants you to nestle under a tree or to cry by her waters. She wants to feel your feet dancing in the rain. She loves us so deeply and yearns for a connection with all of us. And that connection will be a beautiful mirror and reflection of your relationship with yourself and your heart. And so opening yourself to experience the beauty on a deeper level that Mother Earth has to offer, it's a very worthwhile contribution.
mm.
Mhm. And
That I
anyone,
feel is truth in my whole body.
yeah, yeah. And anybody who wants to find me, you can find me on Instagram, healing with Melissa, no A. because it was already taken. And melissamahar.ca. You can find me there. And this was really fun.
I had an amazing time.
Yeah.
I hope our prayers that our words touch you, that they give you hope and courage and freedom in your life and peace in your life, the things that you long for. We want to inspire you to know that you can have those. You can have the things that you desire, the life, the way that you want to walk it. So thank you.
Thank you. Blessings.